It was a quiet Saturday morning when the sun peeked gently through the kitchen window, casting a soft glow on the breakfast table. The air smelled of toast and coffee, and the sound of birds filled the small, cozy home. Lily sat at the table, swinging her legs, waiting for her mom to finish packing her little overnight bag. She was going to visit her grandma that day, something she had been looking forward to all week. Her grandma lived in a small countryside town, surrounded by tall trees and wide fields. Every time Lily visited, she felt free. There were no car, horns, no rushing people, just peace and the sound of nature. She loved helping her grandma bake cookies, feed the chickens, and sit on the porch in the evenings listening to stories from when her mom was young. Her mom, Anna, placed a neatly folded sweater into the bag and smiled. "Don't forget to give Grandma her medicine before dinner, okay?" She might pretend she forgot. Lily laughed. "I'll make sure she takes it. I'm her nurse for the weekend." Anna smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. "My little nurse," she said softly. "All right, ready to go?" Lily jumped up from her chair. "Ready!" They got into the car, and as they drove out of town, the noise of the city slowly faded away. The roads became narrower, lined with trees whose branches danced in the wind. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching the fields roll by like a painting in motion. "Mom," she said after a while, "why does Grandma live all alone? Doesn't she get lonely?" Anna thought for a moment. "Your grandma likes peace and quiet. She says the city makes her head spin. And besides, she has friends in the village. They check on each other." Lily nodded. She couldn't imagine living alone in such a big, old house, but Grandma seemed happy there. Every time they visited, the house felt warm and full of life. After about an hour, they turned down a small, dirt road that led to a white cottage surrounded by rose bushes. The same little wind chime hung by the door, ringing softly in the breeze. Lily grinned as soon as she saw it. "We're here," she shouted excitedly. Grandma was already at the door, wearing her usual blue cardigan and a big smile. Her gray hair was neatly tied back, and her eyes sparkled when she saw Lily running toward her. "My sunshine," Grandma said, opening her arms wide. Lily ran straight into them. "I missed you, Grandma." "I missed you more," Grandma said, squeezing her tightly. "You've grown taller again. What are they feeding you, little one?" Anna walked up the steps, smiling. "Just regular food and lots of energy." They all laughed and went inside. The house smelled of cinnamon and old wood. It always smelled that way, like comfort and memories mixed together. The living room had soft armchairs, a ticking clock on the wall, and a shelf filled with photo albums. Lily always loved flipping through those albums, asking questions about people in the pictures, faces from long ago. After lunch, Anna and Grandma sat in the kitchen chatting over tea. Lily listened for a while, then went outside to play with the cat, Snowy, who had been lounging on the porch. She found a stick and started tracing shapes in the dirt while Snowy chased after falling leaves. The afternoon sun felt warm on her skin, and the world felt simple and safe. But as the hours passed, Anna glanced at the clock. "I should get going soon," she said softly. Grandma frowned a little. "So soon?" "I promised I'd help with some paperwork back home," Anna explained. "I'll pick Lily up tomorrow afternoon." Lily looked up from her coloring book on the table. "Can't you stay, Mom?" Anna smiled gently. "I'll be back before you know it, sweetheart. You'll have so much fun with Grandma you won't even notice I'm gone." Lily sighed but nodded. She wasn't scared to stay. She just knew she'd miss her mom a little. After packing Lily's things neatly in her room, Anna gave her one last hug. "Be good, okay? Listen to Grandma and don't stay up too late watching TV." "I promise," Lily said. Grandma walked Anna out to the car. The two women stood for a moment on the porch, the breeze playing softly with the ends of their hair. "Don't worry," Grandma said, touching Anna's arm. "She's safe with me." "I know," Anna replied, her voice calm but a little emotional. "It's just, she's growing up so fast. I want to keep her close all the time." Grandma smiled knowingly. "They all grow up faster than we expect, but she's a good girl. You've done well." Anna hugged her mother tightly, then got into the car. Lily waved from the porch, and Grandma waved too, until the car disappeared down the long road. The sound of the engine faded, leaving only the hum of insects and the rustle of trees. Inside, Grandma turned to Lily. "Well, just us girls now. What should we do first?" Lily grinned. "Cookies," Grandma laughed. "I thought you'd say that. All right, let's make some." They spent the next hour baking in the kitchen. The smell of butter and sugar filled the air as Grandma measured ingredients, and Lily mixed the dough with more enthusiasm than skill. A bit of flour landed on her nose, and Grandma chuckled, wiping it away with her apron. When the cookies came out golden and warm, they sat together at the table, eating them with glasses of milk. Outside, the sun had begun to sink behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. After dinner, Grandma showed Lily how to knit a small scarf for her doll. Her hands moved slowly but gracefully, and Lily watched in fascination. She tried a few stitches herself, though they were uneven and clumsy. "You'll get better with practice," Grandma said kindly. "Everything worth learning takes time." Later that evening, they settled in the living room. Grandma turned on an old movie while Lily snuggled beside her under a blanket. The house felt peaceful. The only sounds were the soft ticking of the clock and the occasional crackle from the fireplace. As the movie played, Lily's eyes grew heavy. She rested her head on Grandma's shoulder. "Grandma," she whispered sleepily, "can I sleep in your room tonight?" "Of course, my dear," Grandma replied softly. "You always can." Lily smiled and closed her eyes. A few minutes later, she was asleep. Grandma watched her for a while, her heart full. There was something special about having her granddaughter there. The house, which sometimes felt too quiet, suddenly felt alive again. She leaned back, listening to the sound of the crickets outside, and whispered a small prayer of thanks. Before heading to bed, Grandma made sure all the doors were locked and the windows closed. The countryside nights could be chilly, and she liked knowing everything was safe and secure. She glanced out the window for a moment. The moon hung bright in the sky, lighting the garden below. Everything looked calm. Upstairs, Lily was already tucked under the covers. Her small face looked peaceful in sleep, the way only a child's can. Grandma turned off the light and whispered, "Good night, sweetheart," before lying down beside her. As the night settled deeper, a cool breeze passed through the trees outside, making the branches sway. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted, and the wind carried the sound softly through the cracks of the old house. Grandma stirred a little, but soon drifted back to sleep, unaware that this peaceful night would soon take an unexpected turn. For now, the cottage remained quiet, resting under the silver glow of the moon. Lily dreamed of fields and flowers, unaware that far away, her mother had just reached home and was sitting by her phone, thinking of her little girl with a soft smile, completely unaware that by tomorrow that same phone would ring with a call that would make her heart stop cold. The next morning came quietly. The sky was pale blue and the smell of fresh rain drifted through the open window. Lily woke up first. She stretched and looked around the familiar room. The lace curtains swayed gently in the morning breeze, and soft sunlight touched the old wooden floor. Grandma was still asleep beside her, breathing slowly. Lily slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake her. She tiptoed downstairs, her small feet making soft creaks on the steps. The house felt calm, like it was still dreaming. In the kitchen, she poured herself a glass of milk and looked out the window. The garden was full of color, roses, daisies, and small birds hopping between the bushes. She smiled. She loved this house. It felt like another world compared to the busy streets back home. A few minutes later, Grandma came in, rubbing her eyes, and smiling when she saw her granddaughter sitting by the table. "Well, good morning, my little early bird," she said. "Good morning, Grandma," Lily said brightly. "I was just watching the garden. The flowers look so pretty after the rain." Grandma nodded. "They do. Rain always makes things shine again." They had breakfast together, toast, eggs, and strawberry jam. Lily chatted about school, her friends, and how she wanted to learn how to ride a horse one day. Grandma listened with patience and interest, laughing softly at Lily's animated expressions. After breakfast, they went outside to feed the chickens. The birds clucked happily as Lily scattered feed across the yard. Snowy, the cat, followed them around, tail high, as if making sure everything was going smoothly. The day went on peacefully. They baked another batch of cookies, picked some fresh herbs from the garden, and later went for a walk down the little road that led to a nearby stream. Grandma showed her where wildflowers grew and told her stories about how she used to come there as a child. When they came back in the afternoon, the air had turned heavy. The clouds above were darker now, and a soft rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. Grandma looked up and frowned slightly. Looks like a storm might visit us tonight. Will it be scary? Lily asked. Grandma smiled. Oh, nothing to worry about. Just rain and a little thunder. The roof's strong and will be nice and dry inside. By evening, the wind had picked up. The trees outside began to sway, their leaves rustling loudly. Grandma closed all the windows and pulled the curtains. The house felt warmer after that, like a little safe corner in the middle of nature's noise. They had soup for dinner and sat together in the living room. The fire crackled softly in the fireplace, giving the room a golden glow. Lily sat cross-legged on the rug, coloring in her notebook while Grandma read a book nearby. The storm outside grew stronger. The sound of rain hitting the roof became steady, almost like a drumbeat. Occasionally, lightning flashed across the window, followed by the deep growl of thunder. Lily jumped a little at one loud clap, and Grandma reached over, patting her hand. Just the clouds talking to each other, she said with a grin. Nothing more. Lily smiled, feeling braver. They sound like they're arguing. Probably about who gets to make more rain, Grandma joked, and they both laughed. By nightfall, the storm was fully overhead. The lights flickered once, twice, and then everything went dark. The sudden silence made Lily freeze for a second. Grandma, she whispered. I'm right here, sweetheart, Grandma said calmly. She reached for the drawer in the side table and pulled out a flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, casting soft circles on the walls. There, Grandma said, her voice steady. The power's just out for a bit. Happens sometimes out here. They lit a few candles and set them on the table. The warm glow danced on their faces, making the house look both magical and mysterious. After a few minutes, Grandma suggested they go upstairs and get ready for bed. The storm will pass soon, she said. Lily nodded, though she couldn't help glancing toward the dark windows as they climbed the stairs. The wind howled now and then, making the old house creak. It wasn't scary exactly, just strange, like the house was alive and listening. Upstairs, Grandma found an extra blanket and tucked Lily in. You'll be warm enough? Yes, Grandma, Lily said softly. Can I leave the candle on for a bit? Of course, Grandma said. I'll leave the door open too, Lily smiled, comforted by her grandmother's calm presence. Grandma kissed her forehead and whispered, Good night, my dear. Good night, Grandma. When Grandma went downstairs to check the fire, she noticed that the wind had pushed one of the back windows slightly open. The curtains fluttered in the draft. She frowned, walked over and closed it tightly, securing the latch. The rain outside poured harder now, hitting the window in waves. She stood there for a moment, staring out into the darkness. The garden lights were out, so everything beyond the glass was just a blur of rain and shadows. She could faintly see the shapes of the rose bushes swaying wildly. Somewhere in the distance, a faint light flickered, maybe from a passing car or a distant house. She turned away and sighed softly. Just the storm, she murmured to herself. Back upstairs, Lily lay awake for a little while, listening to the sounds outside. The steady rhythm of rain against the roof, the occasional rumble of thunder, and the soft creaking of the old wood around her. She pulled the blanket up to her chin. Even though she wasn't scared, something about the darkness outside made her feel small. She looked at the candle by her bedside table, its small flame swaying each time the wind pushed through the cracks of the window. After a while, her eyes grew heavy. She was just drifting into sleep when she thought she heard something faint downstairs. Maybe the sound of something falling. She sat up, blinking in the dim light. Grandma, she called softly. No answer. She waited a few seconds, listening carefully. Then she heard it again, just a small thump like something knocking against the back door. Her little heart beat faster. Maybe the wind? She told herself. It had to be. She stayed still for a few more moments until she heard Grandma's footsteps coming up the stairs. Relief washed over her. When Grandma peeked in, she smiled gently. All good, sweetheart. Just a loose shutter outside. The wind's making it rattle. Oh, Lily said quietly, her eyes big. I thought someone was knocking. Grandma chuckled softly. Just the weather being noisy. Go back to sleep, dear. Lily nodded, lying down again. Good night again. Good night, Grandma said, giving her a reassuring smile before heading back to her room. The rest of the night went by slowly. The storm began to calm, though the power never came back on. Grandma stayed awake for a while, sitting by her window with a small lantern. She watched the rain lessen, thinking how peaceful everything looked now that the worst had passed. Eventually, she went to bed too, the faint glow of the lantern still burning in the hallway. By early morning, the storm was gone. The sun rose quietly and the house looked calm again. The garden was soaked but fresh, the air crisp and clean. When Lily woke up, the first thing she did was run to the window. The sky was clear again and birds were already flying between the trees. Grandma, she called out cheerfully. But there was no answer. She ran downstairs and found Grandma in the kitchen already making breakfast. You're up early again, Grandma said, smiling. The storm stopped, Lily said excitedly. And look, the sun's out. Grandma nodded. Told you it would pass. They laughed together, the night's worries forgotten for a while. Later that morning, Grandma went outside to fix the shutter that had been banging in the wind. As she stepped out, she noticed something unusual. One of the flower pots by the back door had fallen over and the soil was scattered across the step. She bent down to pick it up, frowning slightly. Maybe it was just the wind, she thought. It had been strong enough to push almost anything. Still, she glanced around the yard one more time, her eyes scanning the fence, the trees, and the path that led to the woods beyond. Everything looked calm, but for some reason, she couldn't shake a small, uneasy feeling in her chest. Inside, Lily sat by the window, humming softly while drawing. She looked out and saw her grandma standing still in the garden for a moment before coming back inside. Everything okay, Grandma? She asked. Yes, dear, Grandma said, brushing her hands on her apron. Just the wind making a bit of a mess. The day went on quietly after that. They cleaned, read books, and prepared lunch together. The air in the house was lighter, but a small part of Grandma still felt a strange sense of watchfulness, like the storm had left something behind other than rain. She didn't mention it, of course. There was no reason to worry Lily, but later that night, as the sun began to set again and shadows stretched across the yard, Grandma found herself checking the back door twice before turning out the lights. Somewhere deep down, she felt that the peaceful weekend wasn't over yet, and that the storm might not have been the only thing visiting that night. The house was quiet again. The kind of quiet that comes after fear has passed but not completely gone. The three of them sat in the small living room for a long time, just trying to make sense of what had happened. The only sound came from the soft ticking of the clock and the wind brushing lightly against the windows. Grandma sat with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Her daughter sat across from her, still trying to calm her breathing, and Lily rested against her mother's side, half asleep, but comforted by her mother's presence. After a while, Grandma spoke. I truly don't understand what happened with that phone call. The line must have crossed somehow. Her daughter nodded slowly, though her mind wouldn't let it rest that easily. Maybe, but it didn't sound like a normal bad connection. It was a voice. I swear I heard someone whisper, help. Grandma sighed softly. Well, no one called from this house. Maybe the wind moved the wire outside and made it spark. That explanation made sense enough to calm everyone a little. After some time, they decided to go back to sleep. Grandma showed her daughter to the guest room and Lily followed close behind. Before turning in, Grandma double-checked all the doors again, making sure each one was locked. She also looked out the kitchen window one last time. The night was clear and calm, but the moonlight made everything look slightly strange. The trees too tall, the shadows too deep. She didn't stay long. She closed the curtain and went upstairs. The night passed without another sound. When morning came, sunlight filled the kitchen once more. The smell of toast and coffee spread through the house. Grandma hummed softly as she set the table. Her daughter came down first, looking a little tired but less pale than last night. "Did you sleep?" Grandma asked gently. "A little," she replied. "I kept thinking about the phone." "I know it sounds silly, but it just didn't feel right." Grandma smiled kindly. "You've always worried too much. Everything's fine now. It was probably just the line acting up. They'll fix it soon enough." Just then, Lily came running down the stairs full of energy again. "Morning," she said cheerfully. Her mother smiled, pulling her close for a hug. "Morning, sweetheart." It was hard to stay tense when Lily was around. Her laughter made the house feel alive again. They had breakfast together, and for a while everything felt normal. Afterward, Grandma decided to step outside and check the garden. The storm had knocked down a few branches, and one of the wooden fence posts had come loose. Her daughter offered to help, so they put on boots and went out together. The air was cool and fresh, with sunlight glimmering on the wet grass. Birds chirped in the trees, and the sound of running water came faintly from the stream nearby. As they walked around the side of the house, Grandma noticed something odd. Near the back door, where one of the flower pots had fallen, the soil looked disturbed again, but this time the mark seemed too deep for the wind to have caused. She bent down, brushing some dirt aside. The shape looked almost like a footprint, half faded but still visible. Her daughter noticed her frown. "What is it?" Grandma hesitated. "Maybe nothing. The ground's soft from the rain. Could be from yesterday when I came out here." But she knew she hadn't stepped there. Still, she didn't want to worry her daughter again. She straightened up and smiled. "Just thought I saw something odd, that's all." They fixed the fence post together and went back inside for tea. The day moved on quietly, though the strange feeling from the night before still hung faintly in the air. Around noon, a knock came at the door. It was the neighbor, Mr. Lewis, who lived down the road. He was a kind man in his 60s, always checking in after big storms. "Morning," he said with a friendly nod. "Just wanted to see if you folks were all right after that storm. It knocked out power all over the area." Grandma invited him in for a cup of tea. They chatted for a while about the weather and how the power company was working to restore everything by evening. Before he left, he mentioned something that made Grandma pause. "You know, the wind was fierce that night. Couple of people said they saw lights moving near the edge of the woods. Probably just someone's generator, but strange all the same." Grandma nodded, trying not to show concern. "Thank you for letting us know. We'll keep an eye out." After he left, her daughter looked thoughtful. "Lights near the woods," she repeated quietly. "Probably just someone passing by," Grandma said, trying to sound casual. "Let's not turn it into a ghost story." Still, when she glanced toward the back window, her eyes stayed there a little longer than usual. That afternoon, they tried to relax. Lily played with Snowy in the living room, while the two women sat and talked. The phone line was still silent, no dial tone, no ringing. Grandma decided she would call the repair service from town the next day. By sunset, the power finally came back on. The lights flickered to life, and Lily clapped happily. The house looked bright and warm again. They made a simple dinner and ate together by the fire. The uneasiness from the previous night started to fade. For the first time in a while, everything felt right again. After dinner, Lily's mother decided it was best to stay one more night just to be safe. Grandma didn't argue. They cleaned up the kitchen, put the dishes away, and settled in the living room. Later that night, as they got ready for bed, Grandma's daughter walked into the hallway and noticed something small but strange. The back door's latch looked slightly loose again, as if someone had tugged on it. She ran her fingers over it, frowning. She thought about telling her mother, but decided not to. Grandma had enough to worry about. She tightened it gently and went upstairs. The clock struck 11. The house grew quiet again. Everyone went to bed. Around midnight, Lily stirred in her sleep. She thought she heard something faint, like the sound of soft footsteps outside. Half dreaming, she sat up for a moment, listening. But the sound faded quickly, replaced by the rustle of the trees. She lay back down and drifted off again. Down the hall, Grandma couldn't sleep either. She sat up in bed, listening. The same sound, soft but real. She reached for her small lamp and turned it on. The faint light filled the room. She walked quietly to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to peek outside. The yard looked empty. The garden was still. But then, in the distance near the old wooden fence, she thought she saw a faint flash of light, just for a second. It was gone almost as soon as she noticed it. She stood there for a while, staring into the darkness, her heart beating a little faster. Finally, she stepped back and took a deep breath. "Just my eyes," she whispered. Just tired eyes. She checked the lock once more, then returned to bed. Morning came again, peaceful and golden. Birds were singing outside, and the world looked as calm as ever. It was almost hard to believe how strange the last 2 nights had felt. Over breakfast, Grandma smiled and said, "I think the worst is over. You can head home today without worry." Her daughter nodded, though she hesitated. "Maybe I'll stay until afternoon just to make sure everything's fine." Lily was happy with that. She spent the morning drawing pictures for her grandma. Flowers, the house, the cat, and the big trees outside. Grandma promised to hang one on her fridge. Around lunchtime, they heard a car drive slowly down the road. It stopped in front of the cottage. When Grandma peeked out the window, she saw 2 local police officers stepping out. She opened the door, puzzled. "Good afternoon, officers. Is everything all right?" The older officer nodded politely. "Yes, ma'am. Sorry to bother you. We're just checking in with everyone in the area. There was a report from one of the farms last night. Someone saw a man walking along the road during the storm. We think he might have been looking for shelter. Nothing serious, but we wanted to make sure no one had any trouble." Grandma's daughter felt a chill run through her. "Did they see where he went?" she asked quietly. The officer shook his head. "No, just passing by. Probably headed toward the highway." Grandma thanked them and watched as they left. The car drove off down the long road, leaving only dust behind. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The house felt strangely silent again. Finally, Grandma said softly, "It's good they checked. Still, I'm glad you're both here." Her daughter nodded slowly. "Me too." Later that afternoon, as they prepared to leave, Grandma hugged them tightly at the door. "Drive safe, my dear. And thank you for coming so quickly last night. I know it scared you." Her daughter smiled faintly. "I'd rather be scared and here than calm and far away." They laughed softly, though the warmth in their eyes carried more emotion than their words. As the car pulled away and disappeared down the road, Grandma stood on the porch waving until she couldn't see it anymore. The breeze carried the scent of roses and wet earth. When she went back inside, the house felt quiet again, but not lonely. She looked around, smiling softly to herself. Everything was fine now, or at least that's what she told herself, until later that evening when she went to make tea and saw the back door again. The latch was loose, just a little, and on the floor near the threshold, faint and muddy, was the shape of a shoe print, one too large to be her own. The evening light faded softly behind the hills, painting the sky in pale orange and pink. Grandma stood in her quiet kitchen holding her teacup but barely tasting the warmth. Her eyes were fixed on the back door. The faint shoe print was still there on the floor, half-dried, half-smeared from when she first noticed it earlier. She had wiped it once, but something inside her told her to stop. It was as if that small print was trying to tell her something she didn't yet understand. She took a slow breath and whispered to herself, "Maybe I tracked it in when I went outside. Yes, that must be it." But she knew she hadn't stepped there that day. She set her teacup down carefully and walked to the door. Her old dog, Snowy, followed close behind, tail wagging lazily but eyes alert. Grandma bent down, looking closely at the mark again. It wasn't just one. There were faint traces of another, smaller print near it, almost as if someone had paused there for a moment, then stepped back outside. She turned the lock gently. It was still a little loose even after tightening it last night. The thought sent a small shiver through her. By the time she went to bed, the moon was already high in the sky. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel peaceful like before. It felt too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the small ticking of the clock beside her bed. Her thoughts drifted to her daughter and Lily. She wondered if they had reached home safely. She smiled faintly, picturing Lily asleep with her favorite teddy bear. That image helped her calm down. Just before she closed her eyes, she heard it, a faint creak from the back of the house. Her heart jumped, but she didn't move. She told herself it was just the old wood settling after the storm. She had heard that sound 1,000 times before, but then came another creak, slower, softer, closer. Snowy lifted his head, ears perked. He gave a quiet growl, low and uncertain. Grandma sat up slowly, her breath shallow. The sound stopped. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then the old clock downstairs chimed once. The sudden sound made her flinch. But when silence returned, she realized something. Snowy had stopped growling. He had walked to the door, wagging his tail now, not barking. That was strange. He always barked when anyone came near. "Snowy?" she whispered, sliding out of bed. She reached the door quietly and opened it just a crack. Snowy trotted down the hallway toward the kitchen, tail still wagging gently. Grandma followed, whispering softly, "What is it, boy?" The moonlight coming through the window was enough to see the shapes of the furniture. Everything was still, but the back door, the same one with the loose latch, was slightly open, just a sliver. Her breath caught in her throat. Snowy didn't seem afraid. He stood by the doorway, looking out into the yard, wagging like he recognized someone. Grandma took a cautious step forward.
"Hello?"
she called, her voice trembling. No answer. The night outside was calm. Only the soft rustling of leaves could be heard. She took another step closer and gently pushed the door closed, locking it again. Then she patted Snowy's head. "No more scares tonight, all right?" He licked her hand and followed her back to bed. The next morning came bright and peaceful. Sunshine filled the kitchen again, and the fear of the night before already felt like a strange dream. Grandma smiled to herself, shaking her head. "I really am getting too jumpy in my old age," she murmured. She made breakfast, fed Snowy, and decided to go into town later that day. She needed groceries and wanted to call the telephone company about the line still not working properly. Around mid-morning, a car pulled up outside. To her surprise, it was her daughter again. "Back so soon?" Grandma said, smiling as she opened the door. Her daughter hugged her tightly. "We forgot Lily's little bag. It had her drawing book and the bracelet you made her. She cried about it all night." Grandma laughed softly. "Well, come in then. You'll make her day by bringing it back." They sat at the table drinking tea. For a while they just talked about small things. The weather, Lily's school, the garden. But then her daughter's expression changed slightly. "Mom," she said quietly, "did everything feel okay here after we left yesterday?" Grandma hesitated. "Why do you ask?" Her daughter sighed. "I don't know, I just couldn't stop thinking about that phone call.
It keeps replaying in my head."
And last night, the power flickered again at home. It made me jump. Grandma reached over and touched her hand. "Everything's fine here, love. Just the old house making noises again. You know how it is." She smiled warmly, and her daughter tried to smile back, though the worry still lingered in her eyes. They found Lily's little bag near the couch, right where she had left it. When her daughter stood to leave again, Grandma walked her to the door. "Drive safe," she said, hugging her tightly once more. "And don't worry so much. I'm perfectly fine." Her daughter nodded, but as she looked back from the car window, she saw Grandma still standing on the porch, watching the road until the car disappeared. That night, Grandma felt calmer. She spent the evening knitting by the fire, Snowy lying beside her. She hummed softly to herself, the house warm and peaceful. When the phone finally crackled back to life later that night, she smiled. "About time," she said, picking it up to check for a dial tone. There was one, but then, before she could hang up, the line clicked, and a faint sound came through. It was soft at first, like wind moving across the wire. Then a voice barely above a whisper, "Hello?" Grandma froze. It was her daughter's voice. "Hello?" the voice said again. "Mom, can you hear me?" Grandma held the phone close, confused. "Yes, dear, I can hear you." "Why are you calling from the old line?" But there was no answer. The line went silent. She frowned, setting the phone down. A few seconds later, it rang again. The same old landline ringing loudly through the quiet room. Startled, she picked it up.
"Hello?"
This time it was completely silent. No voice, no static. And then, after a pause, a faint sound, almost like the laughter of a little girl. Her heart pounded. "Lily," she whispered. The line went dead again. For a moment she stood there frozen, clutching the phone. She tried calling her daughter's mobile, but the call wouldn't connect. Finally, she sat down slowly, staring at the receiver in her hand. She didn't know what to think. Maybe the line was still unstable. Maybe it had picked up another signal. That was possible, right? She took a deep breath and smiled faintly to herself. It's just the wires, she said softly. Nothing else. She hung up and went back to the living room. The fire had burned low. She added another log and sat down, letting the sound of the crackling wood fill the silence. The rest of the night passed peacefully. No strange sounds, no whispers, no footsteps. When morning came, the world looked bright and new again. Grandma made breakfast, took Snowy for a walk, and sat on the porch sipping tea. The sun was warm on her face, and the garden looked alive again. Later that afternoon, her daughter called from her mobile, cheerful and calm. "Mom, sorry if you tried calling last night. The signal here was acting weird again." Grandma smiled, relief washing over her. "Ah, that explains everything. I thought I was talking to ghosts for a second." They both laughed, light and easy. That day, everything went back to normal. The days turned into weeks, and life settled again into its familiar rhythm. Lily kept visiting her grandmother often, but now her mother always came along. The three of them would cook together, sit in the garden, and talk until the sun went down. Every now and then, when the wind blew a certain way or the phone made a strange crackle, Grandma would pause and remember that one night, the whisper, the call, the print by the door. But instead of fear, she felt something different now. Gratitude. Because that night reminded her of how precious her family was, and how fragile safety could be. Sometimes, she would look at Lily playing in the garden and think of how close she came to losing peace that night. It made her heart ache in a good way, the kind that comes from love, from knowing how much people mean to you. And as the seasons changed and the house grew older, Grandma would still check the doors before bed, still listen to the night's quiet sounds, but now, when she heard the creaks and the wind outside, she smiled softly and whispered, "We're safe, all of us." Then she'd turn off the light, feeling peace in her heart, knowing that love, and a mother's instinct, would always be strong enough to keep them together.